Welcome, Bill.
Hello, Sean. How you doing?
I'm excellent. Thank you. Another fun edition of Comp and Coffee, but we have a special guest today, and we're also missing a third of our normal crew.
Who's the special guest?
Special guest is Courtney Bigony. Happy to have her. She's the Director of People Science at 15.5. Courtney, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And unfortunately, we're missing Katie today, our normal third wheel here. I'll call it a third wheel, our normal third wheel. She'll be back next podcast recording. But excited to have you, Courtney. Thanks for joining us today. This came up as a previous, Bill and I are famous for tangential discussions on a previous podcast. And one of the things we talked about is, I don't think many people conduct good one-on-ones. And B, I think there's a strong advantage to people in compensation specifically being able to better conduct one-on-ones with their employees, but more specifically for the focus today, their bosses and if they have skip level meetings, even their boss's boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to start basic. Can you give me your background, Courtney, how you got into all this? You're at 15.5, which is well known for one-on-ones are certainly part of it. Give me an overview of your background and of 15.5 and
Yeah. So I'm the Director of People Science at 15.5, and the most common question I get is, what does that mean? So 15.5, we build leading performance management software. And then as the Director of People Science, I make sure that our software and our product is backed by the latest psychological science. So our software has objectives, one-on-ones, check-ins, high fives for recognition. So I'm looking at the latest psychological science. What does the science show about leading organizations, and then building that into our product. And the one-on-one feature, our check-in feature, is core to our product. So this is a great topic to talk about.
Yeah, that actually sounds quite fascinating, and could probably dive into that for 10 minutes of itself.
Yeah.
But what does 15.5 mean?
15.5, yeah. So it's actually inspired by Yvon Chouinard, who is the founder of Patagonia. And employees spend 15 minutes every week completing a weekly check-in that managers can review in 5 minutes to stay up to date with their employees. So people can grow and develop in their companies and become their best selves in 15 minutes a week with 15.5.
Yeah, I think it was the CEO of Patagonia's goal to continue to live his mission, test their products. So he'd be out on mountaintops in, Chile, Argentina.
Patagonia.
And want to be able to keep up with what was going on back with his team. So he had them assemble quick bullet lists. Does that sound right, Courtney?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So he wanted to run a company and have a life. And that's what we're building at 15.5. Employees can do amazing work and also have a life, and so can managers. And that rolls up to the CEO and the founders.
And you're hiring?
Yes, we are hiring.
Shameless plug all the time. So let me ask you, before we dive deeply into this today, how common, like across the spectrum, how common are one-to-one meetings, do you think?
Yeah, I think that one-on-ones, it's something that people know is important in an organization, but I don't think that they're done well. So I think they're pretty common. People have regular meetings, but I don't know how good they are. And the quality is really what matters.
So talk more about that. I mean, you hear a lot that perfect world, perhaps, a one-on-one meeting should not be about what the tasks are, for example, of that week, or what you're working on necessarily. What is it? What do you mean when you say they're not done well? Is it that aspect, or are there other things too?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, that most of the time people spend their really meaningful one-on-one in person, or even if it's over a call time, focusing on status updates, and instead they should really be focusing on priorities.
That makes sense. And I think a lot of times you see these one-on-one meetings are people going through the motions, or they are told to or know they should have one-on-ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of the information stops there. So it's like, you and I, Sean, should have a one-on-one. It's like, okay, we meet, but we don't know what the point is or what we're trying to do. And so you default to the sort of easy, comfortable thing of, let's just talk about
what are you working
what's
on
on my to-do list and what's on your to-do list.
So when you say priorities, Courtney, does that mean kind of the big high level things of like, well, what do you want to do with your career and how can we help you get there? or here's the priorities for the department that have recently changed, or here's what we're mapping to this year. How is that affecting what you're doing? Like, how does that really come to life that you've seen work well?
Yeah. So I think before we dive into the science of one-on-ones, it's important to zoom out and take a higher level view of like, what is the ultimate goal of a manager in a company? And then that ultimate goal is going to funnel through their real-time feedback, their one-on-ones, their review conversations. So the ultimate goal of a manager is to really unlock employees' potential. And we're seeing this shift in the workplace from this performance-only mindset, where it's about just getting out the goals and just getting out of performance out of employees. And we're shifting to this people potential mindset, where performance will be just a natural result, both performance and engagement. So the ultimate goal of a manager is to really understand what makes your people come alive and then find ways to channel that aliveness productively towards the company goals. So that's this larger shift that we're seeing in the workplace, and it's trickling down into how the best one-on-ones are handled in the world of work. So going on that new framework that we're working towards, I can dive into the science of one-on-ones and what a really effective one-on-one looks like. And the literature that I'm pulling from is positive organizational scholarship, and that's the science of thriving workplaces. And that research is coming out of the University of Michigan, and they are amazing. So when we talk about effective one-on-ones and really unlocking the potential of your people at work, really understanding what it means for people to be their best selves in the workplace. And the first thing is, I just want to highlight something that people don't really get, is that regular one-on-ones are made up of two parts. And according to the science, there's this first one-time kickoff meeting, and it's a 1 hour to 90-minute meeting that happens right when an employee joins an organization, or say an employee is joining a new team. So just at the start of the relationship. And the goal is clarity. So most people just dive into creating regular one-on-ones, their regular check-ins, but they don't have this really important one-time kickoff meeting. And so there are a couple key things to talk about in this kickoff meeting. And again, the goal of this is clarity, to really get clear on the things that aren't made explicit. So the first piece is to look at the job description. So the job description will have key pieces of an employee's role, but it's incomplete. So the first thing to do, like your first check-in, your first one-on-one with your employee, is to review the job description and fill it in with what actually happens on the job. And this is important because only 50% of employees know what's expected of them at work. And when this number increases, performance increases. So it's a really basic foundation. And then the second piece of that initial meeting is to go over the rewards and the comp structure, Q and pay factors, and then the career ladders. So this conversation shouldn't happen during the first performance review. It should happen the first day or during the first week that someone enters the job. So they need to be clear about what are the financial and non-financial incentives of the company, and then how can they grow and develop in the company? What are the career ladders? So that would be the first one-on-one. And then lastly, Adam Grant, he's at Wharton. He talks about having an entry interview during this initial kickoff meeting. And so it's really important to do this and to just understand your employee, understand what their top strengths are, what their favorite types of projects are, so you can really discover what it takes for them to do their best work. And then you go into the recurring one-on-ones. So I just want to highlight that initial kickoff meeting that's so important, that most people don't even do.
No, it makes a ton of sense. Covered a couple of things in there, but it makes sense as the first goal, which I think you're right. But I do want to explore maybe one of the things you said is that the job description tends to be incomplete. Mm-hmm. And this is an area that heavily overlaps with the what we talk about. What does the research say around that? Is it that way because priorities change? Is it that way because there's always nuance to what might be at the top level of job description, but not really how it applies day to day?
Yeah, I would say all of the above. The job descriptions that we're pulling from are usually the ones in the ATS system. So on the website, on your job boards, So just pull that job description from your job board and add it into the one-on-one as a starting point. Most people don't even do that, and then fill it in. That's based off of the priorities of the organization, the unique strengths of the individual, and the nuances of the role, which are generally not accounted for.
Right. That's interesting that it's both job related and person related.
Yeah,
so
totally.
It's another one of the weaknesses of the whole job description world of, managing and maintaining and keeping them up to date and keeping them relevant.
Right.
And also then too, I think the other key thing that I'd be surprised if most people are clear on this, so it's a good thing to cover early as well, is, well, what are the goals? Not just for, hopefully the department that you're in, but specifically for you. How do we get aligned around those? And how do we help you make decisions between both the goals of department/organization and where the company as a whole is trying to go?
Right. It's level setting and clarity all at once.
It is. Goals, clarity, Bill.
It's day one.
Exactly.
So that makes sense. And so let's jump into that though. Then these regularly recurring one-on-ones, how do you really make them truly effective? Is it, the personal example I'll share, before I used 15.5, so we're going back quite some time now, was my boss at the time, a CEO, would come to the meeting with, well, here's the things I want to talk to you about. What do you want to talk to me about? We cross-compare in the beginning of the meeting and then just start to dive in. It was good. There's definitely things that would be nice to have context on before walking into that, as well as, to your point, maybe not just be deep in tasks all the time. So how do you prepare for an effective one-on-one meeting? And I'll add a nuance to that too. How do you prepare for an effective one-on-one meeting when you want to manage up?
Right. So first I'll dive into what the research shows should be included in every one-on-one meeting. And then I can dive into how to prepare for those meetings. So after you have that initial kickoff meeting, that 1 hour to 90-minute one, you're going to want to schedule a regular recurring meeting. So that provides a sense of safety that they know that they're going to regularly check in with their managers after that initial kickoff meeting. And the research shows at least once a month, minimum, if not every 2 weeks. I'd say 2 hours every month, but that should be customized to the person and the role. And then some key things to talk about in that one-on-one every time, these should be like recurring topics, would be number one, goals and objectives, just like you talked about. People should be really clear on their individual objectives and also really clear on the company objectives and how those two align. And then it's also a place for managers to really give context into what's happening with the company that'll impact their employees' individual objectives. And the second part of that individual objectives piece is, are there any skills gaps that's going to impact them executing on their work? So to identify any learning goals. So number one thing on the agenda, goals and objectives, both the individual and the company. And then the second piece I'd have on every one-on-one agenda is wins and challenges. So people need to make progress on meaningful work. And it's important that employees are recognized for wins. So they're really recognized for good work and that managers shine a spotlight on that. And then secondly, they need a place to address any roadblocks or challenges that are getting in their way, and a regular place to do this, which is where the one-on-one is really helpful. And the point here is to really release any tremors before they become quakes. That's the way I like to think about it when it comes to the world of work. And it's also a place when you're covering the wins, really what went well, the challenges, what roadblocks are you facing. It's a place for feedback as well, for managers to provide feedback, and managers should also request feedback from their direct reports about what they could be doing better. And then lastly, so in addition to the goals and objectives, the wins and challenges, I would also create a space for the personal stuff. So anything interpersonally that's happening at work, these things are bound to happen, to bring them up early and often. And then also if something's happening at home that may be getting in the way of their work, it should be a safe space to bring this up. And if it's something pressing, then just bring that to the beginning of the agenda. So those are like the three themes that I would add in to every recurring one-on-one: goals and objectives, wins and challenges, anything personal, as the key topics. And then in terms of your second question, how do you prepare ahead? So not to plug 15.5, and I don't know how other companies do this. Most companies use Google Docs, but I'm not sure how they make it incredibly effective. So the key in terms of planning ahead is in 15.5, we actually have the regular check-in, so the weekly check-in, where you're really going over those key pieces that you submit to your manager. And so that's where you get rid of the status update part. They're privy to what you're doing on a weekly basis and what's going on. And then both people really add key items and key priorities to the one-on-one agenda, both the employee and the manager. So when you sit down for that in-person or video conversation, every 2 weeks or at least once a month, you have all those key priorities to talk about. So it's the ultimate way to plan ahead, weekly check-ins, and then pull those priorities into a one-on-one agenda that you prioritize and focus on when you're actually face-to-face and present with each other.
Okay, so say these happen regularly, get the cadence about it, needs to be customized to the individual. What do you see as the effect on an organization if managers can hold these regularly, whatever cadence makes sense, and do it well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to pull from Gallup stats and then also what the academic literature shows. So Gallup shows that managers account for 70% of engagement. 70% is a really high number. And also that employees are three times more likely to be engaged when their managers hold regular one-on-one meetings with them. So it has a huge impact on engagement. And then the academic literature shows that it not only increases engagement, but then also performance. So they actually did a study with two groups, and one group had regular one-on-ones and the performance increased with those one-on-ones. And then the other group, when they dropped their regular one-on-ones, performance immediately decreased. That's a really amazing study called The Personal Management Interview as an Intervention by Wayne Boss from CU Boulder. And he shows that regular one-on-ones impact engagement and then productivity and goal accomplishment. So it does have a huge business impact.
And were there any thoughts as to why that might happen?
Well, you're not checking in with your folks. One, people don't know what people are doing, and they're not removing roadblocks, and they're not understanding wins. They're not helping their people make progress on work, which is such a big piece.
I imagine there's, accountability. People feel like they're being supported, being recognized, that they're able to talk about what they're doing and getting, getting their bosses buy-in and, general communication. You see that, like, the value of communication is huge to the efficiency and effectiveness of companies.
Yeah, totally.
So if you are a manager in that role that's trying to get the best out of your employees, what are some of the good questions to ask to start that dialogue? You kind of gave us the, cover goals and objectives. Managers should give context as to what's going on in the organization, decisions that are being made, work on skills gaps, wins and challenges are the recognition part. What requesting feedback. What are good questions to ask, though, to prompt those discussions? Yeah,
well, first I would just keep it personal and ask how people are feeling and just do a personal check-in. And then the structure of the one-on-one will actually naturally occur because of the priorities that are already in the agenda. So those questions that I went over earlier, like the goals and objectives, the wins and challenges, and the personal piece, those should already be in that check-in. And then the priorities are what you talk about. I don't know if I would recommend an exact list of questions to be talked about in every single one-on-one, because those are really going to be determined by that regular check-in and what the priorities that are pulled from there. So it's really just focusing on those priorities that are agreed upon and added by both the manager and employee. But one thing I do want to touch on out of the research that is important, since we've really talked about the content and what to talk about during the one-on-one, what most people don't look at, and I love highlighting what the research shows where there's a gap in actual practice, is it's not only what you talk about, it's how you show up as a manager and then also as an employee. And this is so commonly ignored. It's called relational energy in the literature. But what it shows is that positive energizers, there's lots of positive energizers in an organization. And these are people who have a lot of high energy. They're supportive. They bring vitality to their people. are the top performers. So these managers are the top performers, and their team members are high performers as well. So what the research shows is that high performing organizations have 3 times more positive energizers than low performing organizations. So again, we talked about that content piece, what to talk about during your one-on-one, goals and objectives and everything, and top priorities. But how you show up is the second piece. That I don't think a lot of people are addressing, and that I think makes a big difference between the highly effective one-on-ones that are really unlocking your people's potential. So what does a positive energizer mean? Because it can be kind of a big term and topic that can seem kind of vague. I think of it as how you show up. So this is not like a superficial charisma or like a false extroversion. It's really about connecting with your people as people. So what is the tone and the form of the conversation? How do people feel when they walk away from it and during the conversation? So managers, as they're going through these priorities and as they're going through the main topics, they really need to make people feel that they matter. There's a healthy amount of optimism in the conversation. People are present and they're attentive. You know, as a manager, you're not like on your phone, your head's not someone else. You are there and you're focused with your people. You're reliable. You don't move your one-on-ones a lot. That can signal, it could be a poor signal to employees. So always keeping your one-on-ones as a manager, when you're having these conversations, you're really open to new ideas. You're highlighting strengths and you're spotting strengths in your people. You're expressing gratitude. Again, that goes into the celebrating wins piece. So I just want to highlight that it's not just what you talk about. It's also how you show up and the energy that occurs in the meeting, which actually has an impact on performance.
No, that makes sense. I find doing my one-on-ones, for the most part, I actually look forward to them. And if I don't, that says something else, right?
Yeah.
But I think they tend to be good conversations that if you can, to the point that you made earlier, if you can get everybody aligned and motivate, that's a pretty good role to play as a manager as opposed to taskmaster.
Right, exactly. People should walk away from their one-on-ones feeling really clear about what they're doing. And if they are experiencing roadblocks or issues, clear about next steps. And then also really vital and energized. Like, do you walk away feeling energized from your meetings, both the manager and employee? I think that's a really good barometer.
This is more of a curiosity question, and I'm asking this generally, probably to both you and Bill. Is the one-on-one more of a modern construct as far as we know, or have these always been happening, but maybe just never called it?
It's an interesting question. I've in my career, I've had things like one-on-ones the whole time, but I don't remember the first time it was planned, organized, and labeled one-on-one.
So it's always been meetings with your manager, but
right. I mean, in the early days when you're, a pup fresh out of college, it's sort of like, every day is a one-on-one with your manager because you're
true,
back and forth constantly with, what do I do next or how do I do it? I don't know. Courtney, do you have any history on the one-on-one?
Yeah, so I think this is a fascinating question. And in order to answer it, I'd have to zoom out a little bit. So what we're talking about is communication, and communication is a construct. And we make constructs real in how we operationalize these things. So communication, again, is a really big, fluffy term that feels distant and hard to grasp, especially good communication. And then we can make these things real with how we operationalize that, and one-on-ones, having a regular meeting is one way to operationalize really effective communication. Same thing with a recognition program. Recognition is a form of communication. If you have a program, it operationalizes it. So to answer your question, I think that we've always had communication, but I think it is in the recent years that we're really operationalizing it with one-on-ones. I don't think we've done it very well because we're actually just learning about the importance of one-on-ones. I think Wayne Boss's research goes back to 83 or something, 1983. So I think it's fairly recent. And now we're learning how to do those things well, and we're operationalizing it with technology and practices like a regular one-on-one meeting, and then also training those pieces that cannot be done in technology, like that relational piece. That relational energy is important to train on.
Although I think back to your question, Sean, if you deconstruct it, to use Courtney's term, and go back to early days in my career, like the keys to the one-on-one are like open dialogue with your manager, the like safe zone where you can talk about whatever you need to talk about, building the rapport and having that dialogue about what's important, what you need help with, what's going on at work, at home, whatever. And having that, like all those things existed with the good, strong manager employee relationships, that people were doing that all along. And then I think somewhere along the line, people started to realize that those people were doing it well. What were they doing? And then it eventually becomes systematized. It becomes a thing, to use a Sean term.
That's my term?
No,
that makes sense. I wonder too if the free agency aspect, for lack of a better way to describe it, also plays into that when it's not guaranteed. So that makes 100% like what you just said. The people who are the best managers, who are the best teams, who are consistently performing or overperforming would do those things.
Right.
Secondly, though, I wonder as more free agents, right, as people started to move jobs more often came into play, did these become more important? Because one of the biggest drivers of engagement, and I agree with this, is your relationship with your manager. Well, you're going to go find a good relationship with the manager.
Right. Or, and accelerate it.
Yeah.
Make it happen better, faster.
Right. Just interesting trends that kind of converge.
I also think back to bad manager relationships where, you don't feel like you can disclose the real problems or the real story or real hunks in the ocean the bottom want to hear that this person doesn't, isn't easy to work with. And so that's sort of the opposite, the non-one-on-one, the non-effective communication.
The 0-on-1?
The 0-on-1.
Courtney, is there anything in like a terms of a team size that comes into play here too? Because as these things are becoming more important, is there in any of the research that you've seen like an upper threshold of what an effective manager can effectively manage? Not to use redundant or duplicative terms there.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's really important. So this is drawing on Richard Hackman's research on teams, and he's from Harvard. And he says that there is an ideal team size. An ideal team size is 4 to 6, no more than 10 people. And once you go above 10 people, interpersonal friction and then performance issues increase. So I just think with team size, because it absolutely does have an impact on your communication and how effective you can be as a leader, is to just keep it in the single digits.
That's interesting. And that takes into account how many direct reports, correct? So like if you have a team of like 60, but there's layers upon layers, that's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, direct reports.
I mean, it's sort of like the recipe for good dialogue, or I'm going to get laughed at for this one. It's like, how big should a good dinner party be?
Makes
6 to 10.
Makes 100% sense. Like otherwise you're starting to divide into different conversations and
right, exactly. And you lose contact with everybody and it becomes less intimate, more superficial.
Yeah.
Right. And the science for effective, if we're talking about dinner conversations, the science for effective or the right amount of people is about 4.
4.
Wow. I guess that makes sense too. That way everybody's engaged and you don't have that. Some people look to the left, some people look to the right, some people are tuning out. Is that?
Yep.
Interesting.
And I'm probably doing all of those things.
at a given time, Bill.
Yes.
So Courtney, I think that covers a ton today. I think this applies obviously across the board within an organization, but our goal also is to help compensation become more strategic within an organization. I think this is one of those key levers on the way there as you're having these meetings with your boss and your employees as well. This goes both ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Courtney.
No, I was agreeing just like you were.
Bill, Courtney, both of you. Anything else you'd like to leave us with today?
No, I think we jam-packed so much information into 30 minutes. I think if anyone is interested in a resource on positive organizational scholarship and the science behind effective one-on-ones, I would highly recommend a book called Positive Leadership by Kim Cameron. He really outlines a lot of what I talked about and digs in more to other pieces of effective communication. So it's just a resource for your listeners.
Oh, no, definitely. I just wrote that down. I'll take a look into it. One of the earlier podcasts we did that I think this one might have come up on was on what books should you read to become, to better educate yourself, but become a better leader as well. So I'll take a look into that one. I have not yet read it. So thank you for the recommendation.
Of course.
All right. Well, we greatly appreciate your time today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to chat with you. Check out 15.5 if you haven't already. If you don't use them, I highly recommend them personally. That's not a plug. I literally have used them for years now. And
that actually is a plug, Sean.
All right, it's a plug, but I'm not getting paid for my plugs.
Okay, that's fair.
Courtney, can we talk about some monetization of this? No, but highly recommend the software. It's a great utility to use to better understand what's going on with your team and have better conversations when it does come time for those one-on-ones. So thank you, and hope to have you back on soon. I could talk about organizational dynamics, behavior science all day. I find it fascinating.
I know, me too. We'll have to continue the conversation.
That'd be great.
All right, Courtney, thanks very much. We hope to have you back soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much.